Welcome again, and thank you for coming on such short notice. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure, Ice.
Thanks for having me, Comrade Roscoe, on this platform, and to all the viewers. Just a slight correction. I'm looking forward to having a good, productive session with you guys, but I'm also no longer the provincial secretary of the ANC, but I am an ANC member, and my current designation is a member of parliament. I'm one of the many members of parliament of the ANC that serves at our national parliament. I'm one of 400 members of parliament, and my constituency is the Greater Athlone area, which literally covers the Cape Flats area. So it's nice to have to be on your program. Thanks.
Thank you. So my first question to both of you, and of course anyone could just jump in with the answer, is what is the cause of the unrest? A lot of blame is going to Zuma, and I'm also feeling like it's not really the Zuma, and this is once again my own opinion. I might feel like DA might have a big play on that, but of course I can't speculate.
Look, obviously we in the ANC, there is a process where the ANC is renewing itself. We're saying that we want a better ANC for our people and our communities, and our public reps must be servant leaders. And so there is challenges in the ANC. Zuma, for a long time, was part of that problem. And the Constitutional Court, there was some issues around that. But you can't blame everything on one person. I think certainly we were shocked. We condemned the looting and the violence of property. And it just makes all of us a bit anxious, unsure of things. So it's almost like a perfect storm. We all have COVID, there's vaccination, there's food security, insecurity, people are losing their livelihoods, all of those challenges. And now over this weekend, you have this breakout of public violence. And I think for us, just monitoring this, we must keep the line. We must ensure that we confront the looters. But there's also a negative narrative coming out, basically saying that all Zulus are looters, all ANC people are looters. And I think that negative narrative is wrong. It creates fear, because my comrades, I know my comrades in the townships, they've for the last 3 days, they've literally protected the malls in Kailicha, in Nyanga, in Guguletu. I know of good people on the community police forum standing up and be counted. So I want to salute those volunteers, those men, and whatever their persuasions or their political affiliation doesn't mean anything. We are South Africans. We must come together. The thing is wrong. Look, we suspect there's also the fake news and the manufacturing of fear, and almost the manufacturing of them and us and divisions to get us distracted from the real issues. The real issues for us is that we need to transform our economy. We need to ensure that everybody, all our youngsters, everybody gets a quality learning, quality education, and more importantly, quality jobs. And so that for me is a key thing.
Well, I think I agree with Faiez as well. We need to take a holistic approach when we're examining the forces that are manifesting this moment in particular. Well, there are historical forces of dispossession that's driven by colonialism and apartheid, which we cannot ignore. And we have to acknowledge that the political economy of South Africa hasn't really changed from the days of apartheid to the days now, to the days that we have, that we're living in at the moment. There's still, the economy is still very much controlled by a narrow band of people, politically connected people. It's the same as in the apartheid days, whereas Black economic empowerment has meant that only a thin group of politically connected entrepreneurs have been turned from millionaires to multimillionaires, whereas the effects of economic transformation haven't really been felt for the man or woman on the street. Secondly, the issue of political mobilization in the moment, where we can see like the superficial reasons given in the media where they say hashtag Zoomer protests. And that is true. It was the powder keg that was that has exploded along on the given the circumstances that exist in this moment. And then I think what's also important and what we shouldn't what we should be cognizant of is that there's a growing lack of faith in the ability of our system of governance to deliver services to most of the people on the ground. So this is a flashpoint, and it's a big flashpoint. But if you look at the 6 months from, I think, August 2020 till January 2021, we've had 900 service delivery protests in the heart of COVID. So this means that people are generally disconnected from governance in a very disturbing way, and have been for a very long time. Apart from a macro view of there being no plan or strategy to really alleviate poverty.
It kind of creates another question on that, and I think that maybe Faiez will want to answer that, because I feel like you're adding to what the question is it a disconnect? Is it a disconnect with government? Is this just a group of people feeling disconnected with service delivery? Or is it a Zuma thing? Is it a DA thing? And that is the answer that we would just need to hear that answer. What is the cause of this unrest? So both of you could answer that with a quick one.
No, thanks for that. And I appreciate your inputs. Look, I mean, when we started out with local government, I've been in government for a while now, and part of our constitution talks about the 3 tiers of government. At the coal face, we have local government, our municipalities, and the municipalities where all the service delivery challenges must be met. That's at the coal face. Me as a member of parliament, I sit and make laws at the national level, and we do oversight to ensure that people fulfill their constitutional mandate. But your actual hands and delivery of our communities is at the ward level, it's at the council level, it's at the sub-council level. And I think that's where there's a big disconnect. And you're quite correct, Roscoe, that our love language of communication to our governments is service delivery protest. When we're angry, we do service. That's part of ANC and South African language. It's service delivery to raise the issues. And that's also part of our vibrant democracy. We shouldn't be afraid that people must tell us as public reps that we're not happy, and that there must be a right to peaceful protest. So the right for peaceful protest is enshrined in our constitution. But I think there is a disconnect because we're not getting that service at the local level. The people need housing. People need affordable rates. I mean, if you look in the city of Cape Town, if you look at where we are staying, our municipality is one that don't care for all Cape Townians. I mean, I can say it as a fact. There's unequalness in the city.
I agree.
Okay, so that's for me a key thing. So there is a reason for why there's that service delivery protest. Now, for me, we can't just have protection of prosperity for a few, and there's seas of poverty around us. You see, so we're also worried about the private security and the role private security hold in assaulting the poor. Because you see, you can't criminalize people who is poor. And so we need to continue supporting, we need to continue working at it. But I don't think we have a failed state, just to connect with what Roscoe is saying. I think we have a governance that needs to work. Our people need to be more responsive in this governance, and our government must be caring. Our city and provincial government must be able to provide services to our communities. And food security is a key thing. You know, if our people are hungry, they get angry. And so, I mean, what we've done for the last lockdown period in the last, 18 months now, almost, it feels like a lifetime. But since lockdown, what we have done is literally help with community feeding schemes. There's great volunteers, there's great work out there with people doing volunteer work, feeding in all of our townships and all of our areas. And that is what we must continue doing. But we mustn't get bogged down with this despair, because if you sit whole day on your WhatsApp and your phone, people send you all these negative, bad, it creates fear, it creates anxiety. And I encourage even my mom, don't share those things, because you see, you create more panic.
But this is why I encourage this, because I was getting a lot of messages from my mom, and she's so fearful. Of course, maybe somebody that grew up in apartheid, she was so fearful to even send me those voice notes because she felt like she would be adding to that. And it's the importance of why we're having those sessions so that we can get the answers, you know. So how do you think, Roscoe, how do you think we're going to get out of this? How do you think that um, this is not going to happen in Western Cape? I know we as Western Cape people, we need to start helping our outside provinces and our neighbors. But what happens when it happens to us? How do we get out of this?
Well, I think that the fundamental proposition of this discussion is the Western Cape safe. I'm going to have to be blunt and say, no, we are not. If you look at what's been happening over the last, let's say, 2 years with the emergence of parties like the Triple C, it's been basically parties like that have been vessels for the grievance of people against and a disconnected governance that people would rightly or wrongly feel hasn't really delivered for them. I think that it's a weakness in some political organizations, or rather the established political organizations, that they haven't really fundamentally connected with people through community work. I mean, there's the old trope that we only see political parties when it comes to elections, and then in between elections, we forget about them, or rather, we're not seen to be working in communities. From an ANC perspective, there's some structures that are more active than others, and the DA basically run it in autopilot, and that's given rise to smaller political parties that are watering down the body politic. So let's say, for example, the Triple C, they have no viable program to take the masses and the poor forward and to have some program of upliftment. And that's something that an opposition ANC and a mainstream Democratic Alliance should be doing with the people. And that hasn't been happening. So every now and then we have these protests where the Triple C and the Patriotic Alliance, the disruptors of the political system, are finding traction within our body politic. And I think what we need to do, it's an old trope when we say get back to basics, but the fundamental reconnection of society through community work, we have to be there in the organizations, in NGOs, NPOs, youth organizations, churches, sports clubs. We need to be
and how do we do that
with people.
How do we do that with a whole pandemic? I mean, obviously, this sounds like a very interpersonal, face-to-face interaction. What do you suggest, and how are we going to protect ourselves in that way without putting everybody or making sure everyone gets COVID, for instance? How do we do that?
Well, I think that if we face an opportunity now where it's going to be the Wild West of elections. Nobody knows quite what is going to happen because we have this phenomenon of grievance and grievance politics and the protest vote. And we're facing a situation of extreme violence that we haven't encountered before within our body politic as an expression, a mass expression that we haven't seen since the 80s. In a post-democratic society, it's unprecedented. So I think it's make or break, especially in the Western Cape for the ANC, about the kind of cadre that they are going to deploy to governance. Are we going to deploy cadres who are going to do the work, who are going to open their briefing packs, who are going to translate the esoteric politics into real politics on the ground, the bread and butter issues that people can connect with? And then secondly, is the ANC and other political opposition parties and ruling party is going to be consistent in their engagement with people. That's the warning shot that people are issuing to the body politic at the moment. It's like we have to be there, because otherwise people will abandon not only political parties, but the political system as a whole. And that's the moment that we're facing.
Yeah. I want Faiez to add on to this, but it just sounds like there's a lot of shots being fired at ANC, and me speaking as a general person, I'll automatically start to think, is this just about ANC, or is the DA partly to be blamed, or is there any cohesion? So let Faiez add on that, and then you can.
Okay. No, look, there's a lot to chew on here. I think I agree with the sentiments that Roscoe brings out, that we need to get the people's contract back with our people again. We come from a Congress tradition where, as an ANC, you had a Congress traditions mean that your representatives are linked or bound by our communities and our people. And so I always say, ons moet ons hande op hy vlag hou van die ANC, because bad things happen to our country when bad people are in charge of the ANC. So part of the fight for us is to ensure that the ANC remains grounded with its people, that is connected to its people, connected through its branches. The ANC is the only organization that has a presence, wall-to-wall presence, in all the 4,000 odd areas. So I think you're right. We need credible, reliable servant leaders. So in the Western Cape, let me tell you, our plan, Comrade Roscoe, is that we are working with communities. Our ANC branches are looking at identifying community-based leaders. They might or might not be even in ANC. So if you are a competent, capable person, a community activist that has a proven track record, we would like you to stand under the ANC banner and work with you. Look, Dimitri Jacobs, let me use that as an example. We all know Dimitri Jacobs is a progressive person. He's a linguist, he's an academic, and he fits the profile of a competent person. His whole persona will serve Weinberg and Ottery really well. So we need to do all of that for all of our communities across the province. We identify, and our criteria is very clear. We need 50% women. We need 25% young people. So it's 50-50. We need someone that shows the demographics. So if our person in Fishhoek, obviously our person should broadly represent the demographics of Fishhoek. So ideally it should be a person of maybe white. So I think we are also talking to that. We want to have a non-racial character to ourselves. But more importantly, choosing the right people is also having the right program. So our program is very clear. We stand for economic transformation. The days of looting and corruption and tenders and self-serving leaders is over. We've drawn the line in the sand. Our comrades who are corrupt and looters will go to jail.
Good.
I repeat that. So that's our line. And so we're looking for younger people that will be part of this journey. I agree with you that the election is going to be up in the air. Smaller parties don't add value. But to answer your question, the DA is the problem here in the Western Cape. You ask me, what is DA's role to be played? They do nothing but maintain white privilege. For the last 10 years, they've been ruling, not governing. They've been ruling the city of Cape Town and ruling the province. What have they done to create safer communities? What have they done to ensure that our kids are not shot every weekend, every day? What have they done to keep the gangsters at bay? What have they done? So they are in government. The city has billions and billions rands of money from taxpayers. We are charged over the hill. That is the only metro in the whole of country that don't have an indigent, a poor policy. We in the ANC, we care for our poor people. We will focus on our poor people, because you have to have the generosity of the rich and the patience of the poor to bring them together. And
I appreciate you saying that.
Because you see, the thing is, if we just stay behind our gated communities, then people are going to take. If they're hungry, and if you don't want to share, people are going to steal. So we can't protect white privilege anymore. We need an economic system that is inclusive. We need an economic system that cares for our people, that shows that local people is also important. So hopefully in the next elections, people mustn't choose on race or on fear, because a lot of coloreds vote on fear. They vote because they fear for black people.
I call
That's
it the
the
colored
irrational fear.
syndrome. I call it the
Yeah.
colored
So
syndrome.
they think they're better with their white masters. So I talk about the concept of the house nigger and the field nigger. And I'm not using it to a particular person. But they can mense op die initings wat hulle is net in met a certain type of mense. And they are the masters boytjie. Né? And you have colonialism, you have slavery, and we must break free. We're not better or worse. Our community must be South Africans. We must take our equal place. I mean, I take a lot of opportunities into Q-Town, into to Bokmakiri. We get Orambi from the youth people to come. What our kids do? They don't arrive. They don't pitch. Our people must just stick it. They must just be part of. And I think that's the problem that we have. The system must be improved. We need good people. And I think that for me is the fundamental thing that we have. But not all is lost. We push forward, we try, we persevere, and we'll get over this thing. And I also want to give that message to people.
Yeah, I appreciate you as a ANC member actually speaking candidly about what you feel about the DA. It's very rare. Faiez, I really hear a comrade even want to speak. They speak about the DA almost as though it's like a myth, So I appreciate that you spoke so candidly about that. Moving on to the next question. Sorry, very passionate about this. But have people lost faith in the political system? And maybe you answered that just a few minutes ago. The youth don't show up. I mean, we can't really make politics cool.
Look, I think the youth is a key thing, man. So I'm learning to know how to do TikTok, for example. I'm also trying to get young people excited about their future, because politics is about your future. Everybody's concerned about what they're going to be, what they're going to do. Is there a place for me? So if you don't get involved in your politics, you can't determine your future. And so that's the key message I want to get young people in. Young people, take responsibility for your life. Look, it's nice to have a party and to jowl and to be with your brother and all of that. I get that. But there's also time where you need to sit and say, what's in my best interest?
Yeah.
And politics is about getting you lending your support to Faiez or the ANC. If Faiez mess up, then you don't lend them your support again. So you give the DA twice already. You gave people like the DA your vote. What have they done for you aside from giving you a food parcel just before the elections? We as the ANC haven't been in power. We haven't been in power, so you can't blame us. And that's the big challenge. You can't blame us for high water, higher rates, but there's almost what the DA has done very well. They spin it really well. Now it's the Zulus to keep them distracted. But Angus Mackenzie is not going to clean. They're not cleaning our drains. They're not fixing our. In fact, they're doing nothing, but they're putting out narratives.
Yeah.
As the
Fake
ANC
news.
and the swart gevaar and fake news. That's what they're doing. But they're not dealing with the fundamental issues that we are not being served here in Cape Town. We know the water crisis. You know who gets the big tenders. You have to be white to get a big tenders in Cape Town. You can only be good enough to be a subcontractor of a laboratory here in Cape Town. You must know your plek. And I think that's the problem. People still vote in a way. Now, we want to be non-racial.
Yeah.
That's the ANC's objective. We have comrades across our country in every part of and we just say, if you are non-racial, non-sexist, you're part of the ANC family. And we need to grow this ANC based on our rules, based on the constitution, and the future. We must get you guys in. I'm almost 50 now. You guys must lead. You guys must lead the ANC. But we need good people. And that's what we're saying to young people. Technology, I'm also learning how to do all of these things. I didn't know how to do WhatsApps and to do voice notes and stuff, but now I'm learning. And I think we must engage the young people. We need to get more young people to be part of. But I was very impressed last time we spoke to young people in Allah. Can you say they can tell me clearly what's happening, what's their issues, what's their concerns, what they're not happy with. So we do have young, articulate people. I'm under no illusion that we have quite people, young people.
And do you have anything to add, Roscoe?
I mean, that's the
the question was, have people lost
vote.
faith? Well, sorry, the question was, have people lost faith in the political system? So if you want to add to that.
Yes, people have lost faith in the political system. Even people who actively participate in the political system have lost faith in the political system, in anything that can have any material impact in their lives. So it's the politics of spectacle has now become politics. Whereas if you say, for example, if you support Angus Mackenzie, whatever, you support him because he will say outrageous things on Facebook and Twitter, and then he will run over his dog, and that will be big news in the Cape Argus. Or so the substantive politics have been almost removed from the political game. When you're speaking about the young people basically want the same things as any other person. Look at the issue of backyard dwellers. It's like the parents want this land for affordable housing for their children so they can get out of their lives. Children want to. You have a situation where there are 3 generations living under one household, not by choice, but because they have to. It's just the economics
gap
of the
has
situation.
yet to be bridged, and that is, there's a part of me saying, okay, has this looting happened because so many people would love to cancel out that massive gap that has been created by apartheid, whereas, like you're saying, 3 generations living under one house not out of choice, but being forced to, because they are there now to support the older people. Whereas if we're gonna use the words white youth, they just go to university, and then after that parents say, hey, do whatever and they can. That gap is not, they're not forced to do that. So do you think that is what the unrest is about? Do you think that the looting is all because they're trying to bridge a gap? Because I sort of also feel like it's a very criminal thing to just be stealing electronics and not food.
Yeah. Look, if there's one issue that the one thing that's opportunity that this moment has given to us is to reflect on what has been accomplished and what has been left undone over the last 30 years. And it's coming to a head now because the fundamental issue has been, for the last 350 years, has been land, has been the dispossession of land. And if you look at what's happening now in Parliament with the moves to expropriate without compensation, these are positive things that have to happen. Otherwise, the cycle is going to repeat itself over ever-shortening frequencies, once every 5 years, once every 3 years, once a year. The fundamental issue in South Africa is land and dispossession. If you look around Cape Town, Western Cape, whatever suburb you are, how the DA just sits on parcels of land and rolls out the red carpet to developers and business people who are adjacent to developers, because it is a rate-seeking machine. It wants to. Blikkiesdorp has been around since 2006. It's a temporary relocation area.
Yes.
But what is the meaning of the word temporary if something has been going for the last 15 years? It's also coincidental that when the DA came to power in 2006 in the city, that's when Blikkiesdorp was established as a temporary relocation area, and it still exists today.
And they went as far as putting up free Wi-Fi. I mean, that is one of the only areas that have Wi-Fi and temporary living. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. Do you think that we live in a failed state?
Look, I think very good points that was made. Look, I think the system is broken here in Cape Town. And you're right, we must do more. The economic problems of our country needs an economic solution. And I share Roscoe's points about we mustn't have Trump-like personality politics. It's not about Faiez or his cult or his personality. It's about what he can do for his people. And if he doesn't serve his people, he must get out. And so, and also the thinking of what is our policies. So we are a pro-poor, people-centered politics is what the paradigm I'm working with. We help and serve and solve our people's problems. That's our main preoccupation. We must be able to deal with the issues of housing. So, for example, the ANC has a policy on social housing. We want to make parcels available in well-located land so that young people can be closer to the city. Why can't we build in Kulenburg? Why can't we build in these parcels of land that Roscoe is talking about? But he's quite right. The DA only focus on the maintenance of rich privilege. So that's why they would want to, just like how they did now, selling that piece of land to Amazon. That piece of land was Transnet. They sold it to a developer for 10 million, and another person speculated on sold it for 30 million. So Amazon is bringing in all of those skills and all of those opportunities, but locals are not benefiting from it. There's no localization quota. The people in that surrounding area that grew up there, they'll just be ridiculed as call center people, but coloreds must just be call center people. They can't own. We can't be part of ownership. That's the same thing that's happening in ShopRite. All the big companies. We buy, there's a ShopRite in any, or you save in any of our townships. But does ShopRite and all of these companies plow back? Is there local content? So that's the one business that I focus on. We want Black South African business content. So if Aisha makes an acha, why can't that acha of Aisha not be in the ShopRite that we can buy it ourselves? So that's the key thing. We must have localization in our shops. I think those are the key things that I also want to pick up. But look, it will be interesting to see the contestation in the city. I'm focusing on the city. I don't know. I'm not really worried about national, because this is where I stay. I'm quite keen for us to push an inclusive Cape Town. Why don't we get a caring Cape Town? A Cape Town that serves all its people. Not only this, people that stay in the leafy suburbs, a Cape Town that cares for all on the flats. Because more than 50% of our people stays between Mitchells Plain and Kailicha. More than 50. So why can't we put the budget of our people in that? So I certainly will push that our ANC must have, if 50% of our people stays in Kailicha and Mitchells Plain on the Cape Flats, the 50% of that budget must be spent there, because we already have infrastructure in the leafy suburbs. That suburbs just must be maintained properly. So we create work, we create opportunities. We put the money back that we pay from rates. We cut out the corruption. We ensure that if there's any tender, it's the local community that gets that money. So if the city wants to clean, cut the grass there in Heideveld, the youngsters in that Heideveld must be organized so that they get that contract and they share that money. They work for the city, they plow back, they pay their rates, and in that way, we get a city that works for us. We create that circular economy in the local area, because there's dignity in working. You see, I'm also not of this thing that we must only get a basic income grant. We must give our opportunities to earn a living. People must be able to get the jobs. But you can't just have big capital taking all the profit and don't care about the wages of the people. I mean, we brought in the system, the ANC brought in the system now that there's the minimum wage. The DA didn't support the minimum wage. They want to pay people still slave wages. If they can get away with sweatshop work here in Cape Town, they'll do it. They'll allow people to work for peanuts.
Which a lot of Western Cape people don't know. In Durban and Johannesburg, they are not paying minimum wage. They're paying you higher. If you are starting at 3, you're getting a higher salary for depending on your education. Whereas here, really, truly factual, they'll always, even if you are overly experienced, they will always offer you the lowest amount in Western Cape. And a lot of Western Cape people don't know that they would get paid more for whatever they are doing, whether they're in retail, whether they're in the call center, whether they're in the bank, you name it. So a lot of people don't know that. So I wanted to know, what is ANC doing now in regards to in the other provinces about this unrest? What in Western Cape? What as a comrade or a member of parliament
Okay,
or
so
a member of ANC, what are you trying to contribute, or Roscoe trying to contribute to the people that are feeling the burn of this?
okay, so we've just got instruction from Parliament now. We were in a caucus, ANC caucus, and so as members of parliaments and public reps, all of us are expected to go to the ground, literally and also virtually, to see how we can support our communities. Our first priority now is to restore calm, peace, and order. That's our priority. We want we want the trucks to come into our areas in KZN and in Gauteng. We want our kids to have milk and all of this. So we want to stabilize. So that's the first priority. A lot of us are instructed to go and meet. There was a in Phoenix. The Indians burned off an African informal settlement. Now, I think that was just a, a race dynamic. So we as the ANC, we had to go in there and try to say, this is wrong.
Yeah.
People that stay in informal settlements are also people. You want to be treated nicely, but you don't think anything about other people. So non-racialism is the way to go. You can't want your life to be protected, but you don't see someone else. So we are trying to bring people together. In KZN, it's a difficult situation because it seems like a race. There is a
Okay.
class issue between rich and poor, but then there's also a race issue between coloreds and Indians and Zulus
Yeah.
in Durban. So we're trying to diffuse the situation. We're trying to work with everybody. Look, our communities have the right to protect themselves, but you can't shoot someone willy-nilly. So that's also something that we are very wary about. These private security are trigger-happy, conservative, right-wing people, and they make money off the fear of others. So if they can make you like a fearful, then you buy more alarms and you buy more stuff and you buy all of those things. But we need to get a community where I am safe with you because we value each other. We don't have violence as a way, as a mechanism. Gender-based violence is wrong, but we are a violent society, so we must move away from that. And so, what are the steps that we need to do to move on? So you ask me, what are we as the ANC doing? We're going to the ground. We're helping with feeding. We're setting up support. I know our comrades, like I said, in the townships, they're going to protect the malls. Um, we are asked to create consensus. We are asked to help with our communities. We need to help with the vaccination also. We're encouraging people to get vaccinated because in that way, we can try to get normality back. We're also trying to, the small business is a key component. The ANC is now put in a place where you don't have to apply for application license, so you don't have to pay for that. So it's free now. We're also asking the insurance government to help those businesses recover, get the money, the insurance and support for them so that the looting can stop and shops can open up again. We're
Okay.
also asking people not to panic buy. You see,
Yeah.
there is enough for all of us. But if I take 100 toilet rolls, then there won't be toilet rolls for Aisha. So I think we mustn't panic buy because it also speaks to our own sense of just me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
We must become caring people. We must show solidarity and love because we are losing many of our comrades. We're losing a lot of our loved ones. I can count in the last year how many people I lost personally. And we have to pick ourselves up and grieve and all of those things. So let's be kind. There's a slogan, one of my friends' favorite slogan is, don't be cucked, just be quiet. So that's the
Nice.
motto that I try to live with. You just be good. Just try.
Yeah. That makes me
Well,
feel much better. Yeah.
I think, Faiz, one thing that you brought up about the reactionary right is very pertinent. I think we need to not take our eyes off the ball because there are right wingers who are looking at in the Western Cape, who are looking at what's going on in KZN, and they are licking their lips. So over the last few years, you've had like these the Cape independence movement, which is really just a front for reactionary right-wing people to entrench white economic privilege over a conservative reactionary mindset over the majority of the people in the Western Cape. If you read Gramsci, if you're wondering why colored people vote against their white interests, it's basically the cultural hegemony, which not only comes from the tricameral parliament, stretches way back beyond and it expresses itself today as these Cape independence movement. So if you look at how the reactionaries are taking advantage and have built up to this moment in time, where the DA have put forward a bill for provinces to be able to have their own, to call referendums. So look, the way it works for devolution of power from national to provincial to municipal governance, that's a non-starter. Provinces won't be able to call their own referendums, but it plants a seed in their mind of a kind of a separatism, which we can also see taking hold in KZN. And that's, we need to recognize this moment for what it is, a very important juncture in history to maintain the unitary concept of the Republic of South Africa and to resist the balkanization of South Africa into different ethnic groups, provinces, whereas the Western Cape is referred to as the Republic of the Western Cape. We must resist that mindset. And the only way we're going to resist that is to keep our eyes on exactly what the agenda of the reactionary right and the reactionary centrist and the reactionary middle class is going to be. And that's a long political and social project which extends back into, we have to constantly refer to the Freedom Charter and the NDR as our guiding star to fight against these things. And in that way, we're not only putting out a fire in a mall, we are building a future for inclusivity for all people in the Western Cape, in South Africa, and beyond. In Africa, we see xenophobia being used as a cudgel to divide and to beat people up with. Yeah. So this moment is unique because it's a lot of factors are coming together, and we must be aware and of the importance that each of us have to play in this historical moment. It's critical.
Yeah, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories that we'd love to jump on and create fear around. So yeah, the last question is, do you feel personally that Western Cape is safe for now, or should we just prepare ourselves for anything or just keep ourselves safe? And just a short answer, and of course I'll open whoever is willing that's in the room now and wants to ask a question or two, and of course then we'll end.
Okay. Aisha, I think the sky is not going to fall out and the sun is going to come up again tomorrow. So I want people to just relax. Let's not be fearful. Look after your health. It's my one advice. If you can vaccinate. I've registered today to vaccinate. Hopefully I will be able to be in line now. I was under the 59, so now I'm sure I'll make it. So I think let's encourage just solidarity and love and care for each other. That's my message to people. We are safe. I want to talk about this point about the white reactionary secessionist movement. I just want to come on that. I think Roscoe is totally right. There is a need to use the Cape to have it separate from the other country, and we must resist that, because you see, it wants to make this them and us. There's that narrative of them and us, and you know, there is a history also of collaborators amongst our communities. There was collaborators in apartheid. We call them impimpies. There was collaborators that worked with colonial slavery. We call them house niggers. So there is even collaborators now, and a lot of our communities are prepared to do anything to sell their birthright for a penny. And so we must resist. People on the Cape Flats, we also must be woke, so I can use that word. We mustn't allow these agendas to come. They'll give you a bread, but then they would want to take your vote away and want to use you. Our days of being used is over.
Yes.
We are our own liberators. We must take responsibility for our futures and our lives.
Yes.
They can't drug us and make us drunk and drugged all the time. We are people that are resilient. We are people that are caring, and we share, and we must stand up. And our own must stand up for us. Whoever is our politicians, you must keep them accountable. You must ensure that even if you don't vote for Faiez, but if you vote for that person, you know damn well that person must be scared of you.
Yeah.
And he must be accountable, he or she must be accountable to you. And that's the type of service that we want. Participatory democracy. What we're having now is where people take ownership, they take responsibility for their community. The neighborhood watch is a concept that we brought out. It's called Bambanani. How people, it's community policing. It's police not to push people down, but police to hold our neighborhood safe. But it mustn't be in a reactionary way, where right-wing agenda. I must know my kids, I must know my neighbors' kids, and we all must look after our kids. The kids must be able to play safely in our communities. And we must have street committees, street blocks where Auntie Sharon course for Auntie. We're going to help Auntie Sharon because the husband is working on short time. We must care. We must care. And that's the type of spirit. Street blocks, community blocks. And if we know there is the drug den, we must identify them and say, look, we talk to you nicely. Or suki drugs, or suki goedes in ons areas meer nie. We must be able to communicate that, and we must be not scared of fighting criminality. We can't live with criminality all the time. At some stage, we must be law-abiding citizens. We must be able to earn an honest day's work, be able to provide for our families, and do the best. Take parent responsibilities. You don't send your children to school just so that you can be absolved. You must be active in their lives and in their interests. And we must also take the opportunities. I get so angry because there's so much opportunities for our young people everywhere. If I ask the youth in Anova Park, guys, come to Cape Town, there's Arambi is gonna give you 70 rand or whatever amount, and you're gonna do technique skills, interview skills, or whatever learning skills. You know, I'm not saying it as a stereotype, but the kid from Anova Park and the kid from Mfuleni, both of them, they have to travel so far and they have to go through distance. The problem is that kid from Anova Park won't make it. He won't come. He won't show up. We need our communities to show up, to man up, to be there, to be present. And I think that's a key message that I want to bring home. Thanks, guys. I don't know if there's questions.
Yeah, Roscoe, do you want to answer that question? Is Western Cape safe? And yeah, the floor is open, guys. Please, if there is any questions. I know this was such a short notice meeting.
Well, I mean, the only thing that I would have to add, well, I want to concur with Faiez on these points there. And I think that we have to recognize that this particular moment is about a moment where we are sowing what we have reaped. And it's also an opportunity to sow for the future. And I think I'm going to adopt the phrase, don't be cucked, be quiet. I'm going to say, in this particular moment, don't be cucked, be quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you guys so much.
You can just copyright it to me, no?
Sure, no problem.
I can see a campaign coming up.
For having us, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. Insaf, do you want to say anything? I see Insaf, one of Okay, no, don't think so. She's just here.
Thank you. Excellent program. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, Shahida wants to say something. You're welcome to say something, Shahida.
Thank you. This was a wonderful opportunity. I just want to ask, Comrade Faiez, the one I really support and back what you said in terms of development of our small businesses. As someone that has family that's got small businesses, it's, even when you reach out to the CETA and to the CEFA, to CETA, it's not that easy for someone that is useful to start, and for someone that is useful to get their funding. There's such a lot of red tape and things that are making people despondent. So what is your agency doing in terms of providing funding opportunities to someone that is between the age of 30 and 40 that's got an idea and that is willing to work the land, if I can call it that. I mean, even when I spoke to the people on the ratepayers on the Cape Flats, on one of the suburbs in the Cape Flats, it's not that easy. If you're a person that's got a bricklaying skill, for instance, to get yourself onto the list, to get the work from council and city, I don't. Is there anything that from an infrastructure perspective, blockages that you can remove? That's the one question, and the other question is, what is your constituency doing with regard to people between the age of 30 and 40? You know, like the Asia that you spoke about, that's got the acha that wants to sell it. How do we get them into ShopRite? How do we get them into Spar? Where do we go? And where does Asia get the money to buy the ingredients for the acha?
Very good questions, Comrade Shaida. So look, yes, what's the plan and what's actually in reality is the two different things, and that for me is the key thing. So part of my oversight is where I can intervene. If CIFA and CEDA is not doing what we in Parliament are saying they must do, then we can intervene. So let me just tell you, Shaida, there's a target: 15,000 young people must get loan support from government to start their businesses. That is the government target in the annual report of the small business department. Okay, so how do we translate that 15,000? That's a number for South Africa. How do we ensure that a percentage of that comes to the Western Cape and certainly to the Cape Flats? So that for me is a key thing. I'm more than welcome to host the provincial manager of CIFA and CEDA and the NYDA, and I can call them and we can arrange for them to show what's the steps. So if you have applied and you have a reference number, then what is the mechanisms to do that? I can follow up with a reference. Now, your question is about those that are just about 35. So I think there's a lot of other programs. There's what they call a she trades. It's a program just for women, where we want to encourage women business. So she as SHE and then trades. It's the website that really supports women empowerment, local women empowerment. Now, we as I'm talking about government, is in talks with big companies to talk about localization. So localization is a policy of the ANC government, which says that any company must have South African content on their shelves. It must be South African made and South African produced. So we're pushing that quite hard. A lot of the things in ShopRite, they get cheap imports. So what we want them to do is to ensure that a percentage of that is going to our local content. So I can certainly find out if there is existing local manufacturers. I can put them into contact with the national people at DTI, Trade and Industry, and at Small Business Development Department, and ask them how do they facilitate localization of a product. We've identified 1,000 South African products, fruit, local, all of those that must be locally produced, that must be local. We don't want to import, because if we start to manufacture ourselves, if we make bikes ourselves, if we make furniture ourselves, then we create jobs here. We don't buy Amazon goods outside. We don't become just consumers. We want also to be producers. We want to make things. We want to produce industry here so that our jobs can stay in South Africa. And I think there is a move. So I will talk offline with you. I'll share with you all the contacts of the relevant people. And if there's references that you want me to follow up with emails, I will do that. But thanks for the good question.
Bridget also has a hand up. I wonder what she has to say. Bridget?
Sorry, I just want to unmute myself. Thank you very much, Comrade Faiez, for the sharing. Ek gaan Afrikaans, maar zullen altijd zeggen, die van Afrikaans. Nee? Ik in het blijf wat ik nou die meeting geteken because ja, I got something very good from this meeting. You see, as coming van easy. Mitchells Plain bly maar die afgelope tyd maar ook maar een kan gegooi. Ek is bly vir coming van easy. Ek het uitkom nog belangstel aan Mitchells Plain. As you know, we got a lot of challenges here in Mitchells Plain. And I was wondering, coming from easy, you're the only one that always come out and say you got to do something. I see you doing it, man. So we got a problem in different sectors, like now, for instance, you saw my message, my email, you saw that email. Now that is also a big challenge. And the thing is, I saw when I was on the road now the other day, I saw the people panicking, scared. And now our people feel safe because I think we're the only province that handle this looting very good. And I think the work that you as parliamentarians done is very good, but there is some way that we on the ground need more assistance by you coming out and talking to the people, to the youth. And I also had the challenge that actually also taxi people when it come to the vaccination. I was by the day hospital now the other day, so I saw how our old people are struggling to come from Tafelsig or to different areas in the rain for the vaccination. I also requested maybe that we can maybe put campaign where we can bring the old people to the hospital or to points where they can vaccinate. They want to vaccinate. We went in now for 3 or 4 days out on the road just to go check other people's going with the vaccination. So I was wondering if you can maybe ask taxi people to sponsor taking the people from to the areas, to the halls where they can get the vaccination. Because that's a big challenge, you know, which is mense out the taxi fare and so on. So there's a lot of, I don't want to talk a lot, but thank you very much for this opportunity.
Bridget, that's a brilliant idea.
Thanks, Comrade Bridget. And look, Comrade Bridget, I haven't seen you in a while, but I'm glad that you're safe. Look, we must do more. So I think I'll certainly speak to the taxi guys. I know the taxi association. Look, these are also honest people. They're also just trying to make a living. And we need to see how we can help each other. So if you know of many elderly women or elderly people that must be vaccinated, I can also speak to the head of the Department of Health, Dr. Kluter, and see what solutions is there.